This dude's selling puffer fish. Sweet. Uh-huh. Thank you. Hey, so I'm going caving. 'Cause I need iron, and I need redstone, and I need black slate, and many other things. Usually I would try to go caving, towards my base, but I saw some pretty cool caves over here. Let me see if I can find it again. This is either the coolest cave of all time, or it's just a hole in the ground. But I got night vision, and I got, um, water breathing. Oh, lapis already. Oh, oh boy. I should have brought my helmet. Yeah, that would have been useful. You know, the one with the Aqua Affinity enchantment on it? Hmm. This cave's kind of looking like a bit of a bust. Aw. Yeah, remember this cave? When we went out exploring, and there's so many mobs in here. Holy smokes. I should really get sharpness for my axe. Oh, I forgot how luscious and green the jungle grass is. Looks like candy. Oh, wow. Now I'm really wishing I saved my potions. What is that? Oh, those axolotls? Looks like I'm not venturing around lava. Yoink! Got an axolotl. Yeah, there's torches here, so I know I've been here before. This place is 100% picked clean of iron. I know that for a fact. And redstone for sure. Probably. Oh, never mind. Ooh, is this smooth basalt? Isn't that? Yeah, this stuff. Ooh, we gotta be. Ooh, stuff breaks quick. We gotta be careful. Uh, okay, that's where they grow. I don't want to break the source. Ooh, blocks. Look at the size of this one. That's for it. Okay. Ooh. Haha. Wow, that one's pretty big. Do you break this? Ooh. That grows back, right? Oh, I hope they grow back. Block of amethyst. So you can make them from the shards, and I think you can also make the glass from it. Not I think, I know you can make the glass that blocks light. Oh, sweet. Oh, come on. That is a single block of water. Are you kidding me? Um, at least we don't have to worry about the lava anymore. Oop. Huh. Well, that's caving. Probably gonna use the rest of my torches to dig out some deep slate so we can build with it. Boink. Boink. Bonk. Bonk. And what's your XP? I almost walked right past you. You little sneaky. Maybe ooh, lapis too. Maybe wearing a shield is kind of a bad thing at times, I guess. Chops up your peripheral vision. So that's everything, I guess. That I ran out of torches. I should have brought more coal or charcoal or something. I don't know. Let's see what I got actually. I did mine out a whole bunch of deep slate, and we got a buddy. That's pretty sweet. Basalt and calcite. And I haven't really had the opportunity of building with those yet. So I don't know if you can farm them or if they're like super rare blocks, but there's like 12 different types of black blocks to build with, and our first base is built out of one of them, so and And then when you think about calcite, there's also like white concrete and what else is that? Bone blocks is one of them, and how am I gonna get over there? Um, quartz, that's a big one. Yeah, so I guess not really missing out much. Diorite. This looks like diorite, except without the little black specks and the diorite. It's like a smoother, I guess. It almost feels rude to keep this axolotl in a bucket. I don't... Will you stay there? I think they will. This is cruel. But is it better than a bucket? I really should make a uh, fish tank, right? And put Cuddles in the... Oh no, Cuddles in the axolotl would fight, wouldn't you? You are the cutest predator, aren't you? Alright, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm gonna keep you in a bucket for a long time. I'll have to do something with that, though. I'll make it a priority. Yes, I do. Haha. So I'm gonna do something that might seem a little weird. But I'm gonna put efficiency on these shears, and I'll show you why. Alright, don't panic. I know we're running into here for a second, but it'll be quick, right? So I got this chest here. I'm gonna keep the books. This one is the Shepherd book, right? Like I said, I want to go through all the different levels, and each level, this guy is at the 3rd level, Journeyman. Each level has 2 trades selected randomly from a pool, right? So this first level for the Shepherd is, it selects 2 out of 5 options, right? You can see the 2 that were selected for this one was brown wool and shears. That's pretty much optimal. That's what I would like. Um, so those 5 options are 4 different types of wool. So there's brown, like you saw. Then there's white, gray, and black. So that's how I'm going to separate the sheep farm. You know how they were separated into 4 different colors? It was like a color wheel. Rather than it being a color wheel, I'm going to break it up into 4 different palettes based on the tones, and I'll explain that in a second. But this guy, he has brown wool. And you can see I went through and sorted them. So it's like, there's white wool, white wool, white wool, white wool, and then it goes into brown wool, right? Then it goes into gray, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 gray. Then the last 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, is black wool. This will make a lot more sense once it's done, but as you can see, what it currently is the gray tones, and then the reds, browns, right? Then right here it has the 2 green tones. Then it blends from green to blue, the light blue to pink, to purple, right? So it's more of a color wheel rather than based off of tones. And that's cool. I like that a lot. And that's why I originally was gonna do it. But then I looked at the trades and I realized that I can actually separate them all into select different tones. So that's why I need these shears. I'm going to go through and tear up the little flooring, I guess. Not quite the redstone quite yet, but I'm gonna tear up all the flooring blocks so I can show you how the tones are all separated. Those shears broke on me. It did make things go pretty quick while I had them, but maybe Unbreaking 3 next time. Kinda wasted that book, to be honest. It's my bad. Was it nighttime? No, it's just scary. Like I was saying before, we originally did have it as a color wheel. Right, you can kind of see it, the remnants of it, just in the redstone, because I didn't want to tear apart all the redstone. uh, I'll do that in a bit, though. So you can see the grayscale, right? And then the orange colors into the grayscale, and then it's going to transition into more like blues and greens and whatnot, and purples, and then back into the reds. And it was like a color wheel that went through the entire spectrum of the, well, 16, I guess, checkpoints of the spectrum of the color spectrum, right? A while back I had a rant about color theory, and I talked specifically about neutral tones and how they get along well with other colors. And I also talked about how some colors are difficult to get along with other colors because they really catch your eye and they contrast a lot. And you should only kind of sprinkle them in rather than have them as the main thing. That way you get that little splash of color that'll catch someone's eye, but it won't overwhelm them. But there's also the opposite side of that, where if you don't have that, it can get boring pretty quick, right? I mean, this is a really boring wall to look at, as opposed to this. So that's why we've broken these up into tones, or 4 separate palettes of tones, rather than having them as a color wheel that smoothly, gradually, as a gradient goes through the entire color spectrum. So right here we have the light tones, right? So white, and across from that we have gray, and this pink, across from that we have magenta, and then this light blue we have cyan, and this yellow we have orange, right? So those complement each other across the way. If we're looking at something and we think, man, this yellow really is too much, it's kind of like it really is clashing with all the other colors. Maybe we can try an orange or one of these colors, because it might be clashing because of how bright it is. So instead of having a color wheel, we can kind of think of it as contrast and tones, the different values behind the colors, and try to reframe how we look at our color palettes. Then we also have what I mentioned about neutral tones. That's this palette, except for the lime, I suppose, is very neutral. We got the grays that we can look at. We got the earthy green, browns. There's a grass block we're looking at right here, right? Then across from that, we have something that's not very natural. So of course there are, roses and stuff, but again, a rose in a field of grass is that little splash of color that that humans, that I am also a fellow human of that group of, yeah, they enjoy that. We enjoy that because it's a little bit of a change of pace, right? But and another one is like purple. We don't really see a lot of purple. We might see a big field of purple flowers, right? But there still is the blue sky to look at, and the grass that's underneath it and the dirt that's underneath it, right? If we look in here, you can see I don't even have the hoppers installed for the gray and the black wool harvester components, right? That's not even halfway done. It's close to being halfway done, but it's not quite halfway done yet. And even then, just building it, I'm starting to get a little bit overwhelmed with the same exact tone going off over and over and over again. So one thing that we can do is we can change it around. We can raise one an octave, or we can play around with the notes themselves, or we can change the block underneath it to a different instrument, right? And in doing so, we can apply what I'm talking about when I talk about tones. By putting a wood type block underneath this note block, it plays a synthetic bass guitar note, right? So if we look at stripped logs, they look very similar to the bone blocks, right? They got the tile. This is more square, and this is more circular, but it's the same. It's a very similar texture, right? It's very tiled if you put them next to each other like this. And on the sides, the stripped logs are darker on the edges and brighter in the center. It's kind of difficult to tell, but it's a little bit darker on the edges and brighter in the center for the bone blocks as well. So if we go over here and we look, this is it's white. It's a very faint, very, very faint yellow brown color, but mostly it's white, right? And that's a neutral color. So is brown. So we go with the logs, and that's also a very neutral color, right? So why does that spruce log catch your eye a little bit more than the white? It's because of the tones that I was talking about, right? So if we go with something that's a similar tone than the bone blocks, like the stripped birch logs, it's very similar. It doesn't catch your eye quite as much as that spruce does, right? If you kind of just unfocus and just look in general, it kind of sticks out, doesn't it? Rather than the birch. See what I mean? They're the same color in the same way that this orange and this yellow are very close, and this cyan and this blue are very close. They're just one's brighter, higher contrast than the other. You may have seen this out of the peripheral vision of when I'm just showing things around in my world. This is the original palette for the original base, right? It's a lot of deep slate, and it's got the red carpet and the granite rather than the diorite and the blue carpet that we have now that we're kind of trial running. And you can see it's again a lot of those neutral colors, right? There's a lot of grays. This is kind of like a bluish gray, and you have yellow, reddish grass, reddish rock, reddish wood, reddish brown, right? And then the leaves. We can take this and keep the exact same colors, but change the tone to, I gotta look like this so I don't spoil the middle thingy, to a brighter tone, right? So we have the cobbled deep slate. It's just cobblestone now. The cobble, or the deep slate bricks, we have just stone bricks, right? So it's brighter, but it's still gray range of colors. We still got the orange brown, or the brown reddish wood, and instead of a gray acacia, we got the brown. It's still the pillar type block, and instead of red, we have yellow. It's the same palette that we had before. It's just now it's brighter. It's a higher tone, right? Or we can do something in the middle, or we can mix and mash and introduce some different colors, right? So instead of having these yellowy leaves, we got green leaves now. So we can have mossy versions of, the cobbled stuff. And we can keep the spruce, that reddish brown, in the planks, but instead of having a very bright yellow or a darker red, we can have this orange. So it's just playing around with tones while maintaining the same colors, right? That's another thing to think about. Not only do you have colors and the amount, right? Like this yellow is obviously the thing that catches your eye. It's that splash of color I talked about forever ago. Now you have something to play around with contrast and tones. Ooh. And there's also the noisy blocks, right? So the cobblestone and the cobbled deep slate is the noisy blocks, and you have a slightly less noisy block. Then you got very flat blocks, right? There's so much to think about. That palette up there is a great place to start, but more often than not, I find after I'm done my redstone, I seem to also have a large selection of that palette already picked out for me. So I don't know if you can see any splash of color. What could be our splash of color? Right? We got a little more of a splash, but that's kind of the point of the build. So it's great to have like that little, 10% or splash of color. Sometimes it can be a tsunami of color, and that's okay. It's You don't have to follow the rules all the time. So our splash of color, just as a concept, not exactly specifically a splash, is going to be the wool, the different colors of wool. So if we look around, like what kind of noisy blocks do we already have selected? Before even starting to build anything, a part of the component is this grass, and that's a very noisy block, right? And it's also neutral colors. So that's a pretty big score for us. That's why this smooth stone actually fit originally. And it's because it's a very, it's a smooth stone block. It's neutral. It's not a splash of color. It's neutral, and it's flat. That's basically all we're really looking to replace, is because we already have our noisy block and we have our color. We're just looking for more of a neutral block. So one option that we can do is we can play into that tsunami of color, right? With the wool, that could work. Or it doesn't have to be, super quiet. We could have some bricks rather than the flat stone. It has this little bevel texture, and that's a little bit more to look at. And it isn't exactly, it meshes pretty well. We got the chiseled stuff. That's, again, the top of the bone blocks, like I mentioned before. And the logs has that chisel. That circular, square, tile-like pattern. That's another plus. And it lines up with those, so that's always an option. That's a pretty good option, I think. Or we can just go with grass, which is, again, it's green, it's neutral, and we see it against the mountain, we see it all over the place. So just thinking about, like, stuff like that, we can come up here and we can think, oh, this isn't really, like, its own building. If it was all grass, it'd just be, maybe we could just have some slabs or something that just leads us into it, and it looks almost like the grass trails its way down. I think this is looking pretty good. I'm not sure. Oh, this is mountain? Stony Shore. Okay. I had no idea about that. The grass is blue there. That adds a little bit of variety. Yeah, that's what that's about. We did that on purpose for sure, right? Um, yeah, at this point in the build, it's mostly aesthetics. Like, this doesn't add any function other than saving my hunger bar from not having to jump up the dirt blocks anymore. I just run. But at this point in the build, I experiment a little bit. Ooh, I like the grass. I also like this little bit here, especially how it's in line with that. Okay, then let's try this. You know what I mean? You crunch them together, and you find things that you like. At this point in the build, it's not quite done, but I like to start thinking about lighting. Lighting is a kind of a finishing touch, as well as, like I said, depth, right? And do we want this flush? Do we want it to pop out? Do we want it to go back? I'm pretty sold on having it move its way back. But we can try little goofy things for lighting. And I find lighting is mostly where breaking up the patterns of a build happens, as well as this aesthetic part of the build. We can put like cracked stone bricks, or we could put mossy stone bricks. And it's really important at this part in the build to break up the I don't know, I guess I've already said it, the patterns, right? And those patterns happen a lot, especially with redstone for me, because I have, this is a sheep farm, this is the lamps, that's the bridge between the sheep farm and the lamps, right? And boom, that's the redstone component, and then I have 16 of those all throughout this entire build, and that's the pattern. It's 4 groups of 4. So now we got to break that up, and we can do that by putting goofy things like, I don't know, does that look good? Just a random floating lantern that I can bonk my head on. Maybe not. Maybe it does. Alrighty. Ooh, step away from that for a second. So, that's going to be everything for today. I'm pretty sure I might have already closed out an episode with this, but it's a revolutionary mantra that I don't really have any mantras in life other than this, right? Planning means everything, but the plan means nothing. Right? I picked that one up from Dr. Timothy Pitchell. They have a podcast called I Procrastinate. And they're a psychologist that has dedicated practically their entire academic career towards combating procrastination. And their podcast was revolutionary to me. And when they said planning is everything, but the plan means nothing, this episode can kind of encapsulate that pretty well, I feel, right? Like, I originally planned for this to be a color wheel, but now it's more of 4 separate color sets. And I had planned for it to be a color wheel, but and this wouldn't have happened if I didn't have that original color wheel idea. But still, planning is everything, but the plan means nothing, because I can change it. It's my Minecraft world. I can change it whenever I want, right? So it's important not to get caught up on the planning process when you can always change things down the line, right? Yeah. Right. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.